Welcome to Breathe California TV. This is our 30th year in San Jose and Campbell, and we're trying to add Santa Cruz County to our service area. Today, we're going to talk about what Breathe California is, how it improves your lung health and what it can do for you. I've been very lucky. The Barbara Walders of the West Coast is going to interview us today to talk about Breathe California. So stay here. In 30 seconds after this public service announcement, we'll be back.
It's given me a chance to go out and be with people who has the same problem. And it helps you to manage your life better too, because you hear different things from each person, and it's just been really helpful in many ways.
Welcome back. This is Breathe California TV. This show is often called Environmental Concerns. Breathe California is the lung health organization for California. Barbara is going to ask a little bit more of the details on that, but I do want to put in a plug for the way I like to do the show, which is that it's more about preventing damage to you from lungs than the conventional medical approach, which is wait till you go to a doctor because you're not feeling good. So we're going to try to give you some things to learn about the lung prevention organization for California and how it can help you. So Barbara Palmer is a good friend who got drafted to be the interviewer here. Barbara, what is it that you want to know about Breathe California?
Well, this is going to sound like a real basic question, but we're here to learn. So tell me, who is Breathe California? What is the mission statement of Breathe California?
Breathe California is the lung health organization for the state of California. We have in our offices in San Jose brochures on 13 different lung diseases, such as asthma, smoking, air pollution, and COVID, and in 20 different languages, as well as going to health fairs or doing presentations to audiences, whether they be schools or community groups, about how to handle problems that are breathing difficulties.
And what area does Breathe California cover? Is it all of California?
Covers all of California, but I will candidly say the services are better the closest you get to a chapter office. In 2007, Breathe California, the Bay Area, merged with Breathe California Central Coast, and both organizations work out of the office in San Jose.
And so Breathe California does cover all of the state. So when did Breathe California begin? How far back do you go?
1908.
Wow.
So sounds like a long time ago, but people have been having breathing difficulties since our species evolved. Back then, we were called the Tuberculosis Society because tuberculosis was such a serious disease that was the focus of almost all of our lung problems. We didn't have significant smoking, or at least weren't aware of air pollution as a problem back then.
So that was 1908. And then how did you evolve from the Tuberculosis Foundation into Breathe California?
Well, the good news is that we got tuberculosis largely under control. Not much different than polio getting under control in the 50s when we invented vaccines for it. And I don't know, 1925 or so, the national organization changed their name to American Lung Association. And that's where the 6 chapters that are now calling themselves Breathe California evolved. We have more breathing difficulty in California because 95% of us are breathing unhealthy air.
So the air we breathe outside versus the air we breathe inside, does Breathe California study, and are they involved with fixing air both outside and inside?
Well, you're very insightful because the air quality inside in our country is typically 3, 4, 5 times as bad as outside air. And that's just a product of all the things that we do inside. Smoking inside builds up. My parents bought a vacation home for themselves from a couple in Oregon that had been smoking like crazy. And the white wallpaper had turned into the color of the drapes behind me from all the smoke, giving you a sense of how bad smoking is. But anytime we use chemicals to clean up inside, or we cook on a stove, we're getting those fumes into the house, and they can present problems. Breathe California was given funds by the Clinton administration, EPA, to go to schools in the area, and virtually all of them had serious indoor air pollution control problems because schools were prone to be using cleaning fluids that were the cheapest, which often are the ones that are the most dangerous. And there were significant problems indoors at schools from all the different chemicals floating around.
So you mentioned smoking, and it seems like 20 years ago, a lot more people were smoking cigarettes than they are today. So is smoking still a problem that Breathe California addresses, or have they just moved on to other things like gasoline and cars?
It is still a problem, like you say, but you've been very observant in noting in 1988, the people of California voted to put a tax on tobacco to educate the public about the dangers of smoking. And we went from about 1/3 of the adults in the state down to 5% smoking. The bad news is that number's been going up with teenagers starting to use e-cigarettes and vaping. Smoking industry's been pretty smart about coming up with clever new ways to get people hooked on nicotine in cigarettes, but it's still only about 8%.
And then what about, how involved is Breathe California with, right now there's a lot more automobiles powered by hydroelectric, or not hydroelectric, but automobiles powered by solar, for example. I mean, how involved is Breathe California into the gasoline engine problem, or is it a problem?
Gasoline engines are a very serious problem. They're burning fossil fuels, as you're noted, even natural gas vehicles, which in the 70s we thought were good because they were less polluting than regular gasoline, but they're still burning fossil fuels, which create a climate change problem, which is one of the issues we work on at Breathe California. Burning all of the fossil fuels that we use to run cars or heat and cool our houses is a problem that's making the oceans rise. And San Jose will have problems in the bay. Alviso is the little community that's likely to be seriously put underwater by global warming. So burning fossil fuels is both a health problem, the biggest source of our air pollution problems, as well as a climate change problem. So Breathe California works very hard to get us to switch to solar or wind power. State law says hydroelectric power is to be treated as if it was one of those alternative energies, but it really isn't because of how it buries enormous areas of land, killing all the species underneath it and causing pretty dramatic changes. But we're going to have to get to all clean cars here pretty soon, or we're going to find ourselves with a lot of land underwater.
So you said historically smoking was our biggest problem in California, but today, what does Breathe California see as our biggest problem with regard to lung disease today?
So it's clearly air pollution. 85% of that is caused by cars burning fossil fuel. San Jose, where most of our audience is, largely breathes unhealthy air, particularly on the east side. Bay Area is a non-attainment area, meaning the 9-county Bay Area does not qualify as providing healthy air to its residents. And we've got to do some steps to take charge of that. I apologize, Barbara, I'm going to start up a public service announcement, and you and I will be back in 30 seconds.
What it feels like to have an asthma attack is, well, you can't breathe and you can't tell anybody that you're having an asthma attack because you can hardly talk. You can maybe say 1 or 2 words, but you can't say much else. Breathe California has helped me come in contact with more asthmatics and more people who have the same case as I do. It's important to me because I don't feel like I'm alone in the fight against asthma.
Welcome back. This is Environmental Concerns, sponsored by Breathe California. Our guest is Barbara Palmer, who's trying to grill me on what Breathe California does. Breathe California, after all, is here to help you, reducing dangers to our lungs and helping people that end up with asthma or allergies or any of the variety of problems that exist with our lungs.
I have a question now. You mentioned before that air outside, when we look outside, it doesn't look dirty air, just like our air inside the house. But you mentioned how different chemicals could be in our air, even inside the house as well as outside. What about that outside air? Who is really monitoring that air? And how do we find out if we have clean air outside our houses?
So California had bad air before everybody else in the country. And Southern California still remains the worst air quality area in the country. And they started back in 1948 to control air pollution. The San Francisco Bay Air Quality Management District started in 1956 and has been gradually reducing the pollution, but we end up with more people having problems in spite of that. Now, that may seem inconsistent, but that's because we're discovering medically that the level of pollution that creates damage to our lungs is lower than we thought when we first adopted our pollution control laws. So we're getting more people subject to dangers. So the most significant source, as we mentioned earlier, is air pollution. And if your kids go to a school within a quarter mile of a freeway or a major expressway like those in Santa Clara County, they're breathing unhealthy air.
So cars, fuel is the problem, is a major problem, is what you're saying. But should we be concerned? Because if you buy an electric car, how, can you find a place to recharge that car? And when you're using the electricity to recharge the car, is it doing something bad to the environment and our air?
Well, your point is well taken. We have been moving. California has laws that get us to 100% clean power. But the electrons in your wall socket don't care whether they came from gasoline or solar or wind power. And so we've got to get more alternative energy into our system to be able to not have some of the problems that you talked about. If you're burning, for example, it's been shut down in recent years, but at the north end of Coyote Valley is a cowpine plant that burns natural gas. When it went in 20 years ago, everybody talked about how clean it was because natural gas is so much better than burning coal or oil. But at this point, the first things that we use to generate electricity are the plants that come up with alternative energy, and we don't use natural gas or other sources until there aren't any more available and we have to use natural gas. It will probably startle our audience, but the most significant source, meaning like 15% of the state's electric energy, comes from the Diablo Canyon nuclear power plants. There are 2 of them down there, and they do not cause any pollution that would cause climate change or air quality problems, but they are scheduled to be phased out.
Wow. Okay, closer to home now, or an individual. So if an individual had issues, you mentioned there were pamphlets you could pick up on different diseases, and people could be educated, at least locally here. Of course, you're not in Santa Cruz County. What are the steps? Or it seems like Breathe California is, a lot of your mission is to educate us on how do we fix our air, and because it's a problem. And even if you can't see pollution, it's possibly polluted. So your mission is education. So how do you reach out to people and get them educated? And do you help people who say if they need a machine to help them breathe, what if they don't have the money? Do you help them try to figure out how to find grants or money to make themselves healthier?
So when I started my CPAP machine, which is needed for a lung problem called sleep apnea, Medicare covered the cost of it. Obviously, most of our audience is not over 65. Breathe California gives the machines out for free.
Wow.
So you asked more about education. They run classes which have been Zoom for the last couple of years. So they have classes, for example, if you smoke and you're having trouble stopping, they have classes to assist you in stopping smoking, to educate you alternative and how to go about doing it. One of the things I'm most proud of is every summer, and so now's a good time to sign up for it, Breathe California runs camps for kids who have breathing difficulties. When I went to camp when you and I were kids, anybody who had any difficulties or problems was kind of put into a corner or told to get in and compete with the rest of us who had fully healthy bodies and no disabilities. So the camps that we run called asthma camps are a gloriously good way to give people with difficulties a shot. I haven't heard any recent numbers, but about 5 years ago, 25% of the school kids in Santa Clara County were using breathalyzers to breathe. So breathing difficulties are pretty widespread. And happily, Breathe California has classes, or I've mentioned as a volunteer, I've probably gone to 5 or 6 health fairs. So if you have a company like, say, Netflix in Los Gatos with over 1,000 employees, they periodically will have healthcare providers and information available at lunchtime. And so I would go in and just have all the brochures there and answer questions to tell people how to get their problems treated. Obviously, if it's serious, go see your doctor. But there are things that you can do to reduce the impact of any of these different lung problems.
And so if just anybody lived in San Jose, how do they find the Breathe California centers to try to take it, if they decided to go themselves to try to find information?
So
or
Breathe
if they
California
had a group of people and they wanted to ask somebody to come and speak to their people, how would they go about that?
So later in the show, I'm going to plug volunteering, but it's the same number. Call 408-998-5865. Or if you didn't catch that, Barbara and I have our the Breathe California website listed under our names. Just contact them. They are located in Willow Glen in San Jose, 1469 Park Boulevard. That's about halfway between downtown San Jose and Santa Clara University. There's always somebody there to help you on weekdays.
Nice. So do you also go to farmers market? And we have farmers markets in this area to help to spread the word. Sounds like we really need to spread the word because most people think of air pollution as something you can actually see in the air, but apparently no, there's some serious air pollution going along around that you cannot visually see.
That's absolutely correct. I have not done a farmer's market, but I know Breathe California goes there. But just as importantly, go to your farmer's market. It is cutting down on air pollution. Not so much because it's closer than a grocery store, but the food is coming from a much closer distance. When I used to be a professor teaching environmental classes, I'd show a movie and on difficulties that we have environmentally, and it would joke about a 3,000-mile Caesar salad. You live in Toronto and you get your lettuce from Salinas. It's certainly much better to grow it nearby. So that's true of everything in a farmer's market. They've got criteria for what constitutes farmers, and they're not getting guavas or other foods from Peru or Chile or Central America. You know, get it grown from close to home.
And then along the same lines, and now that you talk about getting local food, if you recycle, the methodology for recycling, is that a positive thing for the environment? Or is it just making us feel good because we put things in that blue recycle can? I mean, is it when they recycle in these large places do they think about what are we doing to the air?
So we need more recycling because it does pollute less. The best example is the only reason we have aluminum cans is because we recycle. The process of getting bauxite from Jamaica, which is the world supplier in the whole world, and shipping the dirt that contains aluminum here, and it ends up going to places like the cheapest electricity in our country is from the Columbia River in Oregon and Washington. And that's where our aluminum smelting plants are. As opposed to recycle it here and it'll get melted and converted into cans, and the energy level is trivial by comparison. So everything that we recycle and reuse is immense energy savings. So we're down to the last minute or so. You got anything else, Barbara?
Just the last thing, is there anything I missed that I should have asked that you just want us to know about Breathe California?
Well, you didn't miss anything, but we need volunteers to do all of this. So if you can help out, give a call to 408-998-5865. You know, my background's as a lawyer. I didn't come in with any particular health expertise, but I can certainly handle a healthcare booth and hand out brochures and tell people where to go. Some people think that's what lawyers do. So Barbara, thank you very much for helping us out. And why don't you come back? We do this show every week, and maybe we can do another one together.
Thank you for your time.
That's it. Come watch us next week, Channel 15, San Jose. We're here every Monday night at 7.